In this video today, we're going to talk about coterminal angles in degrees. So when working with angles, you have two different types of degree measures or angle measures. You have degrees and radians. So this video will do coterminal angles in degrees, and then we'll do coterminal angles in radians in another video. But what are coterminal angles? Well, coterminal angles are two or more angles that share the same terminal side. So if you're not sure what I mean by that, let me give you an example of two angles that share the same terminal side. So in standard position, 45 degrees would be drawn this way. So here's your coordinate plane, and then let me change my color so you can see it. So here is the initial side, right? When drawing an angle, you always start with the initial side on the positive x-axis, and then 45 degrees would be halfway into the first quadrant, and so this would be 45 degrees, and so there is your 45 degree angle. Now 315 degrees it's not the same angle because obviously it has a different value, but if we were to draw the angle in standard position, right? And so we have our initial side, and negative 315 means we go in the opposite direction. Well, all the way around is 360, so it's going to stop 45 degrees short of 360, and it's going to end in the same spot, and that would be negative 315 degrees. So 45 degrees and negative 315 degrees are what we would call coterminal angles, because they share the same terminal side. Once again, notice that the terminal side, this guy right here, this terminal side and this terminal side are in the same spot. And so that's all coterminal angles are. But when you look at it, you say, okay, well, how could I go about finding coterminal angles? Because that's really what you end up using them for, and the understanding as we move forward to things like the unit circle. But if you look at the relationship between 45 degrees and negative 315 degrees, one could see that if you did 45 minus a full revolution, 360 degrees, it would equal negative 315 degrees. And so the way that we find coterminal angles is we either add or subtract full revolutions. And so there's one thing that I want to make sure that we see. I didn't do 360 minus 45 because that would have been positive 315. I did 45 minus 360. So you always want to do the angle. You always want to do the angle that you're given plus or minus full revolutions. So if you think about it, we could start with 45 degrees and we could add 40 or 360. So I'm looking back here at this graph again for the 45 degree angle. So I could start at 45 degrees and I could add 360, and notice it would end right back at the same spot. So 45 plus 360 would be 405. You could add another 360 and get a new angle, but it would still end in the same spot. You could add another 360 and go from that direction. Whoops, right? And so you go there. The same thing would work for subtraction. If you subtract, that just means you're going the opposite direction. And so you could start here at the negative 315. You could subtract again, and it just means you would be going in that direction. And so adding or subtracting full revolutions is how you're going to find more angles that end in the same spot. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's just try a few and we'll call it a video. Find one positive and one negative coterminal angle for the given angle. So our given angle is negative 130. And I'm going to draw it, not that you need to, but I'm just going to draw it. And so here's negative 130. Right, that would be in the third quadrant. So here's negative 130. So if I wanted to find a coterminal angle, I would add 360 to this. So if we're looking at going in a positive direction, adding 360 would go this direction, positive. So negative 130 plus 360 would equal, right, 230 degrees. So there's our positive coterminal angle. If I wanted to get another negative number, it's already negative, and so I could keep subtracting, which would then go more negative in the negative direction. And I could keep subtracting, so negative 130 minus 360, and that would equal negative 490. And there would be our negative coterminal angle. And so hopefully you can see that adding or subtracting the full revolutions doesn't change actually where the terminal side is. Notice that for all of them, the terminal side would still be at the same spot in the third quadrant. Let's do one more, and I'm not going to draw it. I'm just going to take a look at it. So I'm starting with 600 degrees, and I want to see, can I find a positive coterminal angle? Well, 360, right, is less than 600. So when you think about it, I could actually subtract 2 times in a row. So if I do 600 minus 360, then I would still get a positive number, and so 240 would be a coterminal angle, and I didn't have to add anything. So you can, if the number's bigger than a full revolution, you can automatically just subtract, knowing you'll get a positive difference. And so then we have 240 minus 360, and I'm going to subtract again because now I'll get a negative number. And so hopefully everybody's okay with me saying negative 120. And so with that said, you have a positive and a negative coterminal angle. If you're curious about where they are, hopefully you can recognize that those would be in the third quadrant. All right, so other than that, you should be able to, after this kind of discussion, you should be able to answer this question. So I'm going to let you look at it, take a gander. Are they coterminal angles? 170 degrees and negative 210 degrees. All right, think about it. Think about how you might go about it. If you're asking yourself a question, what's one way I could try to solve this? Hopefully you would say to yourself, I could draw them both. So if we draw them both, one way, right, would be to draw. So 170, where's 170? 170 has to be in the second quadrant, I think. Right? Yeah, I think so. Then negative 210. Where would negative 210 be? Well, negative 210, I think, would also be in the second quadrant. Take a look. You're here at your initial side. Got to go more than 180, so you're here. But the question is do they end at the same spot? And I don't think they do. What's another way that we could check to see if they end at the same spot? Well, we could take negative 210, and mathematically, the second way, right, of seeing this, the second way of seeing this is just add 360 to negative 210. And I think we would come up with 150 degrees, which is not 170 degrees, so they're not coterminal angles. No. Hopefully that makes sense what a coterminal angle is, and look for the other video of doing it in radians. All right, you guys have a great day. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. All right, talk to you later. Bye.